Today in this video we're going to look at rearranging formulae or transposing a formula. And what we're looking at here is how do we change the subject of the formula. And we're going to use the same operations that we've used for solving equations, and we're going to just not find a value for a pronumeral, we're just going to write it in all the other pronumerals. So let's look at something that you've seen before. Let's look at a familiar formula. This is the circumference of a circle. C equals twice the radius times pi, or 2 pi r as we've written. And what we might want to do is rearrange that formula. Perhaps I need to find the radius. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the same process that I do if I was solving. So I need to isolate the r. Let's have a look at the way the formula is currently written. At the moment, C is the subject of the formula. It's on the left-hand side, isolated on its own, and it's next to the equal sign. And then the formula has been written in terms of another variable, r, and obviously it's got a number in front of it, twice pi. So if I'm going to make r the subject, it means I want r equals. So to do that, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because r's on the right-hand side, and I can see that r is being multiplied by this number 2 pi, or twice pi. So I need to divide by 2 pi. And if I do that, the r is now sitting on the right. And usually we read from left to right, but let's just look at what the equal sign means. The equal sign means this side is equal to that side. So actually it doesn't make a difference that I've managed to isolate it on this side. To be to have good practice, we should write it as though we're reading from left to right. And it simply just means all I need to do is just rewrite it and go, therefore, r equals the circumference divided by 2 pi. All right, let's look at rearranging some trickier ones. All right, so I've written two equations here, and I'm going to rearrange them to make x the subject. So remember, that means isolating x on the left-hand side on its own. All right, so we look at this, y equals mx plus c. You may be familiar with that formula. X is here multiplying by the m. Now, if we're going to go through the order of operations, the first thing we need to do is subtract the c first. So I simply write y minus c equals mx, because taking away c from this side makes it disappear, but I need to do the same to both sides because it's a balanced equation. That's what the equal sign means. Now to isolate x alone, I need to divide by m. So I'm left with x on its own. Remember, we can simply write that from the other way to make sure that x is on the left-hand side. So x equals y minus c divided by m. Looking at this one, we've got x in two places. So the first thing we need to do is expand the brackets. So 6x plus 6 times 2 is 12 equals 5 times x, which is 5x, take away 5y. Now I need to collect together any like terms. So make sure all the x's are on one side and everything else is on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides, leaving me with only 1x on this side. And I still have the 12, and I have negative 5y on the right side. So the next step is to then subtract the 12 from the left-hand side, so I need to also subtract it from the right-hand side, leaving me with x equals minus 5y, take away 12. And now we have made x the subject. Now there are some trickier ones that you may be required to rearrange. Perhaps they might involve a squared term, or perhaps they might involve fractions. All right, so this is clearly a much trickier one that we need to rearrange and make u the subject. We can see here that u is sitting on the denominator. So what I need to do is go through and try and get rid of the denominators, certainly here. Let's just look at u first of all, because I need to move it so that it's on the top somehow. So let's have a look at the inverse. It's currently 1 divided by u. So I need to multiply through by u to get rid of it here. But if I multiply one term by u, all the other terms also need to be multiplied by u. So let's do that first. Multiplying this fraction by u gives me u over v. Multiplying this by u just gives me 1. And then multiplying this fraction by u gives me u over f. Now, I want to try and do the same with all the other denominators so that I don't have any fractions. So let's deal with v next. I'm going to multiply this term by v, which will just leave me with u on its own. But because I have other terms, they also need to be multiplied by v. Whatever you do to one term, you need to do to it all. So 1 times v is v, and then I'm left with vu over f. And I'm going to do the same with f. So let's multiply through by f, leaving vu here, f here, and f here. So I get uf equals vf minus vu. Now I want to make u the subject, but u is in 2 places. When you come across something like that, the best thing to do is to move everything together. So I'm going to move the uf and the vu onto one side, and they are not like terms, but there's another skill that we can use to isolate the u. So I'm going to add vu to both sides. So I get uf plus vu equals vf. Now, this is called factorizing. We're looking for a common factor. Well, both terms have u. So if I pull u out as that common factor, I'm left with f plus v, all multiplying by u. Now this is a clever trick, because now to separate the u from this, I'm going to now divide by all this bracket, which isolates u and makes u the subject. So I'm left with u equals vf divided by f plus v. And that's pretty much how we isolate, or actually that's gone off the bottom of the screen. I'll just write it up there so you can see it. There we go. And that's how we rearrange formulae.